Well, welcome again to my second attempt at this impromptu live stream on the new Beatles song Now and Then. For some reason, I'm having Talk Studio technical difficulties, which last night, as I was trying to record a video about this, um, destroyed the recording. And then a minute into my live stream, first attempt at this live stream cut me off. So hopefully this time we will get through it. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome. I don't often do impromptu live streams. Maybe this is why. It's technical difficulties getting in the way. Hopefully this one is going out now. I need to call it up on the screen just to make sure. So forgive me while I do that and make sure we are going out live this time. Yes, apparently we are. So let's see if it lasts longer than a minute this time. Anyway, welcome to the stream. I did want to do something and talk about the new Beatles song Now and Then, and also their new version or remix of Love Me Do. As you can see, I've got my Beatles gear on, especially, including a Beatles t-shirt underneath. David is back. I'm sorry about that, David. I don't know what happened. I'm having extreme difficulties with my studio software at the moment. So hopefully we'll last longer than a minute this time, which is obviously something we would always like in any circumstances. I just got to send the link out to a few more people though. So let's see. There might be the odd guest will drop in. Let's hope so. So just in case, I will send that out, and we might get a couple of guests. If not, it'll just be you and me, David. Do it again. Control V. There we go. Alrighty. So, new Beatles song, which I believe you said you had not heard, David. So I'd urge anyone who hasn't heard it to get onto YouTube, go to the official Beatles channel. There is an official music video. There is also the official audio on YouTube of the song. And there's a 12-minute short documentary about the making of it. So they're all available on YouTube. Obviously, there's no substitute as well for buying the track on your favorite music service, whether it be Amazon or iTunes, and having a high quality digital copy of it. I've got that digital copy, and I've also ordered the vinyl copy because I just like to collect the odd bit of vinyl here and there still in these days. So anyway, there's a meme going around, probably quite an accurate meme, which about the clocks going back, which says Rolling Stones have got a #1 album and the Beatles have got a new single. Just how far back did the clocks go? Did it go back to the 60s? And I guess it kind of caught me by surprise. I'm not particularly keeping up on news day to day on classic rock. I'm more looking back a lot. And I know there's an ongoing rolling program of Beatles remasters. There has been every time the technology changes. I think the Revolver remasters is one of the latest examples of that. And Giles Martin, let me just show this here. Giles Martin, son of George, of course, has been working steadily the last few years on some of that. So going through the material, next another 2-pack release, going through the material and taking the technology and remastering some of those tracks. But to get a new song, well, not an unknown song to John Lennon and Beatles fans, but to get a new song is something of a rarity. And they are saying that it's the last one, that there will be no others. Now, they've said that before. They said that at the time of Anthology. So there's always the possibility that there won't be anything else, but it's becoming increasingly unlikely. Paul and Ringo are both in their 80s. They were luckily available to work on this track, but who knows what may happen in the future. So the story is, and obviously Beatles scholars will know the details far better than I do, but back in the 70s, around about 1977, John recorded a number of songs, as he did a lot in the Dakota, on cassette. Songs that he was trying out, had written half-finished songs. And some of those never got finished or never got released. One of those was Grow Old With Me, which did eventually see release on Milk and Honey. And there were 3 other tracks, at least, on this cassette or cassettes. 2 of which, well, all 3 of which were given to the Beatles around about the time of Anthology. So, Yoko, hey, Lizard King, good to see you. So Yoko gave the tape to the Beatles in 94, 95. And on that, because the Anthology project, which those were going to be used for, had been kicking around for a number of years. John had actually signed off on it back in the 70s when it was still being called The Long and Winding Road. George eventually objected to that title for various reasons. I think I know why, because it was a Paul song. He thought it should be a bit more generic, the title of that project. And the project eventually morphed into Anthology after, sadly, John had been murdered back in 1980. But the Beatles forged ahead with the project. Apple forged ahead with it. And these cassettes, containing the songs Free as a Bird, Real Love, and Now and Then, were given to the remaining Beatles to see what they could do with. And Jeff Lynne, who was producing the Anthology material, along with George Martin and others. Hey, Christopher. Good to see you. Lizard King 89, good to see you here too. Thanks for dropping by, guys. It's a very impromptu stream. And I'm glad I don't do too many impromptu live streams, given though my first attempt died after a minute. Technical problems. So anyway, back in 95, the remaining Beatles got together in, I think it was Paul's studio in Kent, and worked on Free as a Bird and Real Love, taking John's vocal and piano. And with the technology at the time, they were able to make a reasonably good job of Free as a Bird and Real Love, taking John's vocal, separating it out, and adding on new music to go with it. And those 2 tracks saw the light of day, obviously, in Anthology. But there was a 3rd track, Now and Then, which defied their efforts to clean it up. The piano was just too loud on top of John's vocal on the cassette. It's a cassette anyway, so the technical limitations of that cassette were lots of hum and hiss. And after a day working on it, George, Paul, and Ringo said, yeah, well, let's call it a day. We're never going to be able to do this. George particularly said, this is rubbish. It's not going to work. And there it lay in the vaults until the present day. So what changed? Why did they decide they wanted to try and do something with it now? For a few reasons prompted this. First of all, well, the AI question is one that Giles Martin has addressed, of course. First of all, the technology changed. So for the Get Back project that Peter Jackson produced and directed, he and his team commissioned some software to be created that would allow better separation of audio tracks so that they could dig into some of the tapes on Let It Be and pull out the actual instruments from a very muddy mix, a lot of crossover, as you get in the studio anyway. And Let It Be was a particularly chaotic thing, filming in Twickenham, filming in Abbey, a little bit in Abbey Road, and then in the Apple studios. So in order to get a better audio out of that whole experience for Get Back and have Atmos mixes and Dolby Atmos and all that, they got this software commissioned. And it's so good that it can actually Pool, all you need is cash. Great Ruttles reference there. Yoko needed the cash. So they decided that having the software available would enable them to do something with Now and Then. And prompting for that was also the desire for Apple, Giles Martin, and the Beatles to remix these two albums. The Beatles' Red and Blue, famous Red and Blue albums, 62 to 66, 66, 67 to 70. These are my original cassette copies of these from back in 1974. Those two albums were released in 1973. Compilations, not the first Beatles compilations. There was certainly at least one collection of oldies but goodies before that. But these were at the time the definitive compilation collections of Beatles, important Beatles tracks. So the desire was to use this software to remix those, and in order to sweeten the pot a little, add a couple of tracks to those that were not on them, and one of being Now and Then. So they have been working, Paul, Ringo, and Giles have been working on this since last year, and did things like orchestral overdubs in secret, saying it was a Paul McCartney project or whatever. And we have the final results of that, which is the Now and Then track, which is going to be on the, what will be called the 67 to 70 album, but it will go 67 to 2023 now. Looking forward to hearing those, by the way, because this software enables them to really isolate tracks. And an example of what they've done with the old stuff is on the B side of Now and Then, which is the 2023 remix of Love Me Do, the very first Beatles single. Well, the first Parlophone single. We discount the old Hamburg stuff, Bert Kaempfert stuff. My Bonnie would, strictly speaking, be their first single, I guess. But the first proper George Martin produced Parlophone single, Love Me Do. And that's on the B side of the vinyl of this, and will also be on the 1962-66. And it's an example of what you do. So they took John's vocal, stripped the piano out, brought the vocal up in the mix properly, and then they also added some of George's work from that one day in 1995 onto it. And then they added the orchestral overdubs, and then Paul and Ringo added vocals and backing vocals and a further instrumentation. So Ringo drumming, Paul's bass, as you can see in the video, and also Paul recording in place of a proper bridge or middle eight, recording a new slide guitar solo, which is a tribute from him to George. It's done in George's style. So yeah, 8-track. I have some Beatles 8 tracks, Lizard King. And I do have, I've got a Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl 8-track, which is actually not that easy to get hold of, which is found in a thrift store once upon a time, which I was quite pleased about. But yeah, I used to listen to them on cassette. I had the cassettes when I was a kid in the 70s, early 70s. I grew up listening to the Beatles. So why, I know a lot of people are not that hot in the Beatles. A lot of people are. I'm an enormous Beatles fan, and it's more than that. It's cultural impact of them, and the fact that I grew up right as a kid, born in '63, listening to the Beatles. It's like a soundtrack of life for me. I'm an enormous appreciator of the music, and that's why listening to Now and Then is an interesting experience as a song. And I'm sure, David, others have said you've gone on and listened to it now and watched the video. It's very poignant, very wistful. The song itself is a fairly downbeat ballad. Great vocal by John. It's so eerie to listen to that voice coming out now that they've raised it up in the mix. You can tell it's a little bit unfinished as a song, but he has a very plaintive, melodic riff in it, in his vocal. Hey, David, we're the same age. Yeah? Young and virile. I find it very poignant listening to it and watching the video. And for copyright reasons, I didn't want to do a reaction video. I'd love to do one. Maybe I'll go over and do one on Rumble. I did want to. I'd love to be able to play it and talk about it, but the chances are we'd probably even get the stream taken off. I might try just this showing, turn the volume down, show a little bit of the video, see if we can actually get away with a little bit. Like if you look at the McCartney album, yeah, I got to switch that off because I'm getting ridiculously getting claimed on that. So, but he has that kind of scruffy looking beard, and he's not doing. Paul is a persona, as we all know. A lot of cheeky chappy stuff has gone on over the years. Not always. I mean, I'm a huge Paul fan. I got posters up on the wall from gigs. But this time he's deadly serious, very low key. You can tell. I think you can tell he misses John and George, and he wishes they could all be working together. And I think they would have worked together for sure if John had not been taken from us, and then later George. And you can hear it in his singing. I think it's uncanny. And Ringo's backing vocals are great too, I have to say. Great drumming by Ringo. As always, that deep sound that he gets. Absolutely love it. The solo by Paul is fabulous. The bass is fabulous. And Giles Martin has done a fantastic job arranging, producing the strings. Not sweet, not that sweet sound. It's very reminiscent of, it's a tribute to George Martin's arrangement. I think it's that unsweet sound with not a lot of vibrato in it. Suits the song very well, very wistful, very nice. And I know it won't grab everybody, because not even the Beatles is everybody's cup of tea. It grabbed me just because of that poignancy. I mean, they're saying on the video documentary, this is it. There is nothing else. This is the last one. It doesn't mean the Beatles won't go on. The remixes will continue with current technology, and every few years that's going to happen again. But I think as a collective effort with all four Beatles appearing on something, that may be it for something that's new and unreleased. They may be truthful when they're saying that. And yeah, Ringo's backing vocals really are good on this. And he's backing, Ringo's a lead singer as Ringo. Not bad, but, not as much range as others. But his backing vocals are always great and always worked really well on Beatles tracks too. But Ringo is such a warm guy. It's always, that warmth always comes across. The video for the song is extremely poignant, and I love the way like they do with anthology, they mix all four Beatles into it. You get stuff like the backing that I've got behind me here with all four Beatles performing together, mixed in seamlessly. So this is where technology has been a good thing, I think, for those of us who are fans of older bands like the Beatles. The Kinks are doing stuff like this too, the Kinks' Journey stuff for the 60th. They're really cleaning up the audio in a lot of the old songs, cleaning up the videos, putting out stuff that's interesting to see that we may not have seen or heard before. Hey, Christian, good to see you here, buddy. So now and then, yeah, it's a poignant experience. It's a lovely song. I really like it. You're not getting it. It's not heavy rock. It's a beautiful ballad, minor key ballad. Well, I assume it's a minor key. I'm not a technical guy. It just has that feeling. It's that down feeling, but also so beautifully done that it's at the same time uplifting and poignant. And it is an epitaph, a real epitaph, I think. And a suitable one. It's not just a sort of sixth take of a track that's been cast off. It's something new. Yes, people had heard the John tape before, but for us, it's a completely new song, beautifully produced. Giles Martin really is. So the Carnival of Lights, Taylor Swift mentioned, that's the only thing that might remain in the can. Carnival Lights they did for a psychedelic thing in the 60s, 17 or 18 minutes of sounds and fiddling about. Unless you were at that in London, you would not have heard that. I've never heard it. I'm sure that somebody out there has got a bootleg. Paul always said that that's the real bottom of the barrel, and they were never going to put that out. You never know. Never say never again. Yeah, the Smilex is saying it's a grower, I think. If you weren't into the Beatles, you probably wouldn't like Now and Then at all. But if you are a Beatles fan, I think give it a little time, it will grow. The Beatles Lord of the Rings film would have been awesome, and it was on the cards. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. God, can you imagine that? If we had a real multiverse, we could go back and see that, go into it and see that. Wouldn't that have been just awesome? Yes, almost an afternoon delight. Almost, but not quite. And I don't know why my text is looking so blurry on here. I'm having all sorts of technical problems. But thank you for joining me, everybody, on this impromptu chat. As I say, I don't do this very often because often I think, well, who wants to just sit and hear me burble, burbling on. But so the other track I wanted to mention, actually, I'm going to show you that picture. I'm going to hide myself for a second, then I'll be back. There's the background. So Love Me Do is the B-side of the vinyl single and is also available on streaming to buy. And it's going to be on the remixed 62, 66, Red 67, 70 Red and Blue albums, which I'm really looking forward to hearing. I mean, I got them on cassette and I've got them on vinyl and I've already got them on digital. I'll probably be forced to buy them again because I want to hear what they've done, especially with the older tracks. So Giles Martin's got a lot of interviews out there explaining what they've done. So if you now listen to the 2023 remix of Love Me Do, obviously it's a simple song. It's the Beatles' first they did for George Martin, late 62. You can tell, you can hear Paul how nervous Paul was singing. And the sound, it's always been a very slight song. And back in 62, two tracks, mono, not proper stereo, always sounded fairly limited in that respect. It's still a limited song, but if you listen to the new remix on headphones, you'll hear a lot more than you could hear before, and you can hear what they can do with this technology. First of all, the bass is completely separate, which is, it wasn't mixed in. The crossover, they've eliminated the instrument crossover. As Giles Martin said, it's like listening to the band in the studio at the time as opposed to what ended up being released, which is a muddy, mixed up crossover thing. The acoustic guitars are more audible. The song has more depth. And most importantly, you can really hear John's great harmonica playing in it. So it was very interesting to hear. It's still never going to be nobody would ever claim Love Me Do is a brilliant, by any means, a brilliant Beatles song, but it was the first Parlophone one. And it's great to hear it cleaned up. So what they're going to do is use that technology on these other tracks on Red and Blue. So I am looking forward to hearing that, getting some true Dolby stereo mixes now of stuff, just to compare them to what they did with those tracks when they did the last remasters. So have a listen to that too. So yeah, it was the bloody text is my fault. I've had a lot of technical issues in the last few days with my studio software, which I'm trying to resolve with the makers of it. But this one could just be I've just picked the wrong damn font. So I could put styles. Oh, there you go. I can probably figure it out now. Oh yeah, here we go. There you go. That's a bit cleaner. Really, I wanted to use the Beatles font, which I use for a lot of things, Bootle, but I don't have it on. It's not available to me in this studio. There you go. I figured out how to change that. So yeah, take a listen to Love Me Do, see what you think. 62, the Red and Blue album remasters are out soon. Might even be out now. I think they're in, or maybe a couple of days away. So try those out. And the Red, White, and Blue albums. Yeah. The reason these albums are important, because they were 1973 released compilation albums, is that I'm extremely fond of these. red and blue albums. Like many of us, as there were kids at the time, it was my first introduction to a compilation of Beatles material across their entire catalogue. And it was a brilliant selection. There's a couple of things that could have been on here. They're not. It was, generally speaking, was single releases. I love the covers as well, because that's the Manchester House AMI building. That was the cover they used in the first British album, Please Please Me. But then they went back and for later and did this as older guys looking down the same spot. And that's what they used for the two covers of these. So they're hugely important compilation albums, two of the greatest compilation albums of any band's ever released, showing the importance of that Beatles material. So I'm looking forward to hearing what they do with that. And they're adding extra tracks. Revolver was seriously underrepresented on these, for instance, because they only had, I think, Eleanor Rigby and Yellow Submarine from Revolver. They've added Taxman and some other George stuff onto these too. Without my glasses on, I can't even remember, but I think Here Comes the Sun might have been missing from these. Yeah. I think it was, and I think Here Comes the Sun was missing from Beatles 1 as well. So that's going to be added, I believe. So yeah, so some great stuff going out there with the technology. I really like Now and Then as a track. I loved hearing the remixed Love Me Do. If I had a little more cash, I would be buying some of the other, like the Revolver set that was out recently. I can't quite stretch to that right now, but I'll be certainly looking at getting these. I'm trying to buy stuff on vinyl, waiting for the vinyl Now and Then. There it is. So for those who've heard it, a couple of you commented. We've got 10 of you here now. It's great to have you here. What do you think of Now and Then? Is it a fitting ending for the Beatles, for new material? Is it a cash-in? Is there too much use of software? Some people have suggested that. Giles Martin says it isn't really AI. Some of the backing vocal stuff that they've taken and used has been software done, but it's the Beatles tracks they've used to source that backing vocals. What do you guys think? I mean, is it a great song? Is it a fitting tribute? Some people say it started well as a song and then it kind of tails off. But I think that what the Beatles have done is, and I love the way they've placed Paul's vocal in amongst it. Paul and Ringo are hugely on board with it. And as I say, Paul just sounds so wistful when he's talking about it. I really think, I mean, they're older guys, and as you get older, you get more sentimental. I think he really misses John and George. And, one day they won't be here either. So, but the 62, 67 remixes, I think are going to be very interesting. Smile X thinks it will stand the test of time. I think so too. I mean, a lot of people were not fond, particularly of Free as a Bird and Real Love. And I get it, Real Love is maybe not the greatest of the leftover tracks that were on that cassette. Free as a Bird, I like. I know a lot of people go, well, that's pretty dull. I really loved it, and I love George's slide guitar on it. Christian Delorme, a Vinyl Revival. We had a great live stream. Christian and his guests recently, his first live stream, and there will be more. Looking forward to that, buddy. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. $5 Canadian. Check Christian's channel out, please, everybody. Let me buy you a Nuki Brown. That would clean the bad out of you. That would clean anything out of you. I tell you, that stuff, Newcastle Brown, you don't just drink it on the night, it lingers. So I gotta play. You know what I'm going to play you for that.
Sit your money maker, sit your money maker. You got to have the feeling, sure as you're born. Hey!
The classic. Thanks for that money, buddy. I appreciate that. It'll buy me a beer. Yeah. Cleaned drains, guttering, and hippos digestive tracts too. It does. I can assure you, it does. So while I'm still talking Beatles, I did see something interesting yesterday in, I think it was Home Sense, one of these places. Sometimes a book's in there. The Beatles complete recordings by Mark Lewison, of which you can see the hardcover copy of that book, which you can't get now in the hardcover. Sought after book, best book about music ever written, in my opinion. Day by day, session by session, about every Beatles recording session ever done. It's fascinating. You see the development of rock recording unfolding day by day, how they improved it, created it, invented it, whatever. They had a soft cover, small soft cover copy of that book, which I didn't know there'd been a release of that in Home Sense. So get out there and check any stores where new books are being dumped. You might find a copy of that Beatles, the complete Beatles recordings by Mark Lewison, who was instrumental in I was going to say archaeology, that was the Ruttles, and anthology, in putting that, doing the research for that. You'll see him credited in all the Apple stuff these days. He's a fantastic Beatles researcher. Check that out. See if you can find a copy of that book. It is well worth it. So, yeah. So there you have it. Now, I'm going to do a little video later about it, but I did get another piece of vinyl yesterday. I'm going to throw it up on the screen now. So I will not throw it up. Just give me a second. Got this yesterday. Dave Davies of the Kinks, one of my favorite guitarists of all time. His Father Christmas live EP on vinyl. Father Christmas, of course, one of the greatest Kinks songs ever, written by Ray, and on the other three tracks in there are written by Dave. And he does credit effusively his brother for writing what Dave considers one of his greatest favorite Kinks tracks, one of his favorite Kinks tracks of all time. Amongst the other tracks in there is another Kinks song, Love Me Till the Sun Shines, one of my favorite Kinks songs, sung by Dave originally, written and sung by Dave. Check this out. If you can get it on streaming, great, kick-ass stuff. Dave's lovely guy, always responds on Twitter and likes stuff if you talk about Dave and the Kinks. Father Christmas, kick-ass live version of it. So I got that too. So must be sent by Bob Dylan as the greatest Christmas track ever. Well, we're coming up for Christmas, so I think I'll be doing a live stream on best rock Christmas tracks. I may have done one before, can't remember, getting old. We're going to do another one. I'm pretty sure number one for me will be Slade's Merry Christmas, Everybody. I don't care what the rest of you say, because it'll be my show. Father Christmas, though, is another great one by the Kinks. And then Elvez, L-E-L space V-E-Z, Vez, Elvez, Feliz Navidad is another brilliant one where he mixes Feliz Navidad with Public Image, the Johnny Rotten songs. Yeah, it was actually an EP. It's only got 4 tracks in it, but it's 12-inch. Always go for the 12-inch if you can. So anyway, thank you. Spice Girls will definitely not be number one. I would like to thank you all for. So David's just got done listening to. Not the best Beatles tune, but it definitely sounds if it came from John's side of a Beatles album. Yeah, you could see it being on a Beatles album. You can imagine if they'd got back together as they'd planned eventually for the anthology stuff. They were talk of a new album, talk of performing together again. It probably would have happened. You could see that could have been used on such an album, I think. So yeah, be giving it a listen to everybody now and then by the Beatles, and Love Me Do. Hear the new, you'll get on headphones when you listen to the remaster of Love Me Do, you'll hear what the Beatles remixes are aiming for in the red and blue albums that are coming out shortly. And Giles Martin's done a phenomenal job. So I would like to thank you all for dropping into this impromptu live stream. This one didn't quit on me, so that's good. There will be no show on my channel on Monday, just to let you know, because I'm busy. But the following week, I'll be having some special guests that worked with the Allman Brothers, Dickie Betts and the Allman Brothers, back in the late 70s, early 80s on their reunion tour. So Wilco, Don Bew, and some other gentlemen who were part of the road crew for that tour, and they'll be talking about that vintage era of rock touring in the late 70s with the Allmans, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Little River Band, and some other bands that were involved with those guys. So that could be a lot of fun. Yeah, we're having a Dickie Betts, Allman Brothers special, but just about that era. Not the happiest of tours, but still interesting. Yeah, well, we will be talking about some of the Dickie Betts stuff on that stream. So it's the following Monday. Tonight, my cousin Jock McHugh will be on Snowdub's channel on the Carlton Council. A lot of great guests coming on that. Drunk 3PO and many others will be guesting with us with the puppets. And then 10 p.m. Mountain Time, Brahmabull and I is at Bourbon and Boarding on both our channels and both our Rumble channels. So if you're into hockey and a little bit of booze, join us for that. We have a great ton of clips lined up to play and some hockey chat. Other than that, it's been real. Thank you, everyone. Who are the Spice Girls? Yeah. They're beginning to look like musical giants when you look at the stuff that's out now. But yeah, Dickie Betts will be the subject. Dickie Betts and the Allmans 1980 reunion will be the subject of next Monday show with some guys who were there in the room. Lots of great photographs to show. So till then, guys, take care. Thank you for joining me. Hope you all have a great day. I'll be back soon. Hope to see you all next time. Till then, keep on